Hello, and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Owls. I want to do a little more on owls. This is a wonderful, wonderful book. Donald Hall tells the story from a young boy of a man, from the young boy till old age. And Mary Zarian was the one who illustrated it. It's a thin book, but it's a book that really stuck with me, this story and the life of this man. And I want to share it with other people, maybe for 13-year-olds and up. A man who lived alone. Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Now, when I was teaching grades 4 and 5, I used this book. It was one of 24 novels that we read in 2 years. So, because I had students for 2 years, I'd read 12 books one year. Well, then the next year, because I'd have the fourth graders become my fifth graders, we had read a different 12 books. And this was not a short book. This was a long book. Fair bit of dialogue. Here's the way I did it. I would read all the narration. And I would have made a note of the different characters from the novel that spoke in each chapter. And I would list them on the board each day. So let's say we're doing chapter 1 and 2 the first day. I would list the characters. And starting with my class list, I would start with the first person alphabetically. They could choose whichever character they wanted. And the second person could choose the third. And as we went along, they started to know what some of those characters might be like, and that helped their choices as well. The very first book that I looked at, I'll share with you at another time, but I found that they didn't have to choose. I think that was important. They could pass. But once they saw how this went, they all wanted to read. And that reading aloud with the different voices and just my voice reading added to the enjoyment of the novel and the memorableness of the novel. We did things with this book in terms of art and other things like that as well, but it was the actual sharing in the storytelling that I think is what probably will stick with them the longest. So, the next book, again, I found a passage I wanted to read because the trees and things that are mentioned in it are a little bit different, but I'm omitting that. This is a shorter book, and it's a dramatic book, a memorable book as well, and it was one of the ones that we would read aloud as a class. More conversation and great incidents that happen in the telling of the story. Now, you can't tell. I'll just show sort of a print of it. What am I doing here? Let me find the title. There we are. There's the title of it. Owls in the Family by Farley Mowat. Now, if they enjoy this, they might want to go off on a branch and read other things by Farley Mowat. And he's written many things for young people and for older people. One that they might enjoy is this classic called the dog who wouldn't be. So I think Farley Mowat just had a flair with writing. Now you think of him maybe as a writer, but he was also, first, a naturalist. And this book is probably more for 14, 15 and up. Never Cry Wolf. It's a true account of his first expedition in terms of working as a naturalist to the far Arctic and observing wolves and doing just what we were talking about last time, where you give some distance to your subject. They're in their natural environment, and your job is to just pay attention and record and think about what it is you're seeing. Questions may come up, but sometimes as you days go by, you'd figure out the answer. And so this is a fascinating book. And if you became interested in wolves from this, they're not much in the way of trees here, but some wolves live where there are trees. And this book is called Wolf Pack. It's by Sylvia A. Johnson, and she's written other books, and they're always really well researched. And so it's a fascinating record, and that be a nice starting point as well. And Dale Wood, it did sort of a photographic history of recording happenings in a wolf pack. So, back to owls. Granny's Gang is a lovely account of a couple who decide they want to help care for injured animals, but they decide to specialize in looking after injured owls. And they're in Ontario, and they get people contacting them from various areas where an owl's been injured, or an baby owl has fallen out of a nest, and they nurture and care for that owl and develop a relationship, and then release them back into the wild. A wonderful book. Now, it was came out a couple of years later. I thought, a different book. It's actually the same book inside, but they must have thought, better than a title than Granny's Gang, which, what's that book about? This title would alert people what they're writing about, and a place for owls. Here are a pair of naturalists, husband and wife team, and they wrote a book based on their observation out in nature. Ada and Frank Graham, they wrote books on bears as well. This man finds a young owl and takes it into their home and helps care for it. And it's a fascinating story as well. Let's see. William Service is his name, and the book is just called Owl. Tied To is a story about barred owl, and it's by a man named Glenn Fuhr, and it's from England. This also is from England. Terry Rowley paintings for this book, it was his concept or idea. He didn't write the book. And in fact, I have to look inside to check. John Andrews wrote the book, but it's Terry Riley's brilliant paintings that are so expressive in capturing the barn owl. But now, I like to conclude with back to the great horned owl. And this is a team of naturalists. John and his wife, Jean. The last name is George. And Jean George has written some other books about owls, but next time I want to focus just on a series of books that Jean wrote. So, until next time, thanks for joining me. Bye for now.